Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily as we are reading through the poetry of Emily Dickinson contained in the Johnson edition. We turned out a poem 803, Who Court Obtain Within Himself. We can't help but read this and think about Sidney's Thou blind man's mark, thou fool, self-chosen snare, fond fancy scub, and dregs of scattered thought. That poem about how desire can in some ways change fundamentally who you are. Now, we're going to see in this poem what we have already seen in earlier poems. The idea of the power of self-confidence, or some will call it self-esteem. Do you guys remember when we did 7:13? She said it this way: fame of myself to justify, all other planet be, superfluous, an incense beyond necessity. Fame of myself to lack, although my name be else supreme, this were an honor honorless, a futile diadem. She'll talk about the crown in this poem. Do you remember 7:53 when she said it this way? My soul accused me and I quelled, as tongues of diamond had reviled. All else accused me and I smiled. My soul that morning was my friend. Her favor is the best disdain toward artifice of time or men, but her disdain toward light or bear, a finger of enameled fire. 789, on a columnar self, how ample to rely, in tumult or extremity, how good the certainty that lever cannot pry and wedge cannot divide, conviction that grantic base, though none be on our side, suffices for a crowd ourselves, and rectitude in that assembly not far off from furthest spirit God. Can we just point out really quickly the power of Emily Dickinson, writing in the same time as Ralph Waldo Emerson, who in his Civil Disobedience will talk about the power of the majority of one, and we've given full lectures at learnstrong.net, of course, on that classic essay. Now, our assumptions is that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you worked through our set of introductory comments as well as the preceding 802 poems. We just finished with 802, Time Feels So Vast. Now, many have commented on the amazing psychological perspective that Emily brings to so many of her poems. Notice what she has to say about the power of holding your own court, holding your own performance, your own respect, your own self-respect. Who court within himself sees every man a king, and poverty of monarch is an interior thing. No man dispose whom fate ordain, and who can add a crown to him who doth continual conspire against his own. Now, this is, of course, pure Emerson. This is, of course, our studies of self-reliance. We've given full lectures on all the essays of Emerson at learnstrong.net if you want to run those to ground. Again, studying self-reliance will come to mind, as well as, of course, Thoreau's Civil Disobedience, as we said. Notice she'll begin with this idea of who court obtain within himself. Notice, by the way, it's not herself. Isn't that fascinating? You'll remember in 235, the court is far away. This idea that Emily will play around with monarchies, even though, of course, she is a great lover of democracy. But this idea of the king sitting with all this pomp and circumstance, she says, if you don't have that ability within yourself to enjoin your own monarchy, there is an amount of prestige or pomp that will ever give you that level of self-confidence. She says, if you have your own court within yourself, then you'll see every man a king. It's interesting. She says, if you have a certain perspective of yourself, you will mirror that or show that to others around you. She says, in poverty of monarchy is an interior thing. In other words, for Emily, how you think about yourself will predetermine how you think about others and how you treat them. No man, notice again, not woman. No man, by the way, notice she talks about kings, not queens. No man dispose whom fate ordain. And she repeats herself. And who can add a crown to him who doth continually conspire against his own. In other words, if you don't have a certain kind of interior confidence, she says, there is no amount of Scooby snacks or rewards can ever actually help you. Now, as we come to the meaning or the themes of this one, we'll point out that the only reward that matters is really how we think of ourselves. This will remind us of several texts when we get to 3a, as we will here in a moment. Before we get there, though, let's think about 2b, the language of kings, the language of monarchy. By the way, notice, not queens. It's interesting that she'll play that game. It's at 3a, though, that our comparisons here are quite remarkable. Think about Proverbs 23:7, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, is her King James reading of that. What about the opening lines of the Dharmapada, right? Everything you are is a product of what you have thought, the Buddha teaching. And think about the Bhagavad Gita, passage 2. You have the right to work, but for the work's sake only. You have no right to the fruits of your labor. Desire for the fruits must never be your motive in working. Never give way to laziness either. The argument that the work that we do, and I think for Emily this would be her struggle as a poet, in terms of writing for herself versus writing for other people and even possibly publishing. You'll remember she called it the auction of the mind. The contentment that she says I can feel within myself is enough. I don't need any special crown or anything else. Finally, to own a poem like this at 3b, when was a time when you were totally true to yourself and you felt like there wasn't any kind of reward that could come from the outside that would in any way complement what you already knew about your accomplishments? Thank you. I hope Emily's challenging you.